You're at a pretty low place in life when you're calling Harry Potter characters jocks. This is true. I am. This comment gets me. But I called my insurance and they're like, we'll cover 40% of your therapy once you hit your $12,000 deductible. And I'm like, $12,000? What do you want to do? Break both my legs? Anyway, we're going to continue to call Harry Potter characters jocks because I think there's worse coping mechanisms. There were a good amount of people in the comments saying like, Harry's not a jock, stupid. Harry's a nerd. Nerd? You know what? I respect everyone's opinions on their interpretation of the characters, but I don't say my character interpretations without having a MLA formatted thesis to back it up. Obviously, I was being a little bit facetious when I was calling Harry a dumb popular jock, but enough people sparked my passion about the topic that you're getting a video on why Harry is a dumb popular jock. I'm sorry. All right, let's get into it. I'll make an actual funny skit about this later, but for now it's analysis. I think this is definitely a case of book Harry versus movie Harry, because book Harry is so much more of a dumb popular jock than movie Harry. There are several reasons for this difference, all of which I'm going to list in this video, but the first is that Quidditch is just not featured very much in the movies. In some movies, it's not there at all. So you can kind of almost forget how much Harry is thinking about and talking about and playing Quidditch in the books. Anytime anyone gets him a Christmas present, it's Quidditch themed. When he goes on his first date with Cho, after he exhausts everything he can in the conversation about Quidditch, he's like, I don't know what to talk about now. Harry nearly murders Malfoy in the 6th book. The worst punishment Snape can think to give him is to have him miss the final Quidditch match of the season. And Harry's reaction to this isn't, oh, you're right, I should stop and think about the fact that I just committed a near murder. It's, but sir, Quidditch. There's a line that perfectly encapsulates this in the 6th book. Also, don't come at me for my book. I've had these for nearly 2 decades, okay? I did not break them. This is just what happens when you read Harry Potter this much. Ron and Hermione are having relationship drama. And the first thing Harry asks is, well, Hermione, you're not going to tell him what you did during Quidditch, right? Because he would fall apart and we would lose the next match. And Hermione responds, Quidditch is that all boys care about. Harry's the Troy Bolton of Hogwarts. All right, I've defended my position, Harry's a jock. But I think what a lot of people had complaints with was the fact that I called Harry popular. They're like, how could you call Harry popular? Harry's a loser. Ignore the fact that I'm sweating. It's 100 degrees in here. It's October in California. Happy Halloween. There is an immense difference between the way that Harry is ostracized by the school and the way that actual unpopular kids like Neville and Luna are ostracized by the school. Because the 3 times Harry is what you would consider an outcast is in his 2nd year during the Chamber of Secrets fiasco, in the 4th year when people thought he put his name in the Goblet of Fire, and in the 5th year when the ministry and the government are running a smear campaign against him. Now, when this happens in Chamber of Secrets, people are not ostracizing Harry because he's a loser. They're ostracizing him because they think he's trying to murder Muggleborns. When it happens in his 4th year, people are not demeaning Harry like he's a loser or he's a nerd. They're talking about him like he's a popular kid that needs too much attention, right? Like when a popular kid at your high school does something obnoxious, you're like, oh my God, here he goes again. That's how people are talking about Harry. They're like, wow, he's already famous. He's already the Quidditch star. He just wants more. If you look at the way that actually unpopular kids and nerds in the book are treated, characters like Neville and Luna, where people are hiding Luna's clothes just because she's weird and different, you can see there is a stark contrast to how kids are treating Harry, who is a well-known popular kid at the school, and the way that kids are treating Luna, who is actually weird and unpopular. You know Harry's popular because the first thought he has when he's caught sitting with Neville and Luna on the train in 5th year by some pretty girls is, oh my God, they're gonna see me with these losers. Then you get to the 6th year where Harry's popularity soars because he now has the Chosen One title. All the pretty girls in the school showing up for Quidditch tryouts just because they want to be near Harry. The thing is, you don't see any of that in the movies. I'm thinking specifically in the 5th movie when Harry's trying to ask out girls to the Yule Ball, and there's like specifically a scene where the girls look at him and they're like, ew. Well, that's not what happened in the book. Harry had girls asking him out. He just was like, I don't know, I don't want to go with you. It wasn't a problem of not having any girls want him. The thing is, in the movie you get the impression that Harry's a nerd who dates nerds because movie Ginny and movie Cho are both portrayed as very like quiet, shy, reserved, a little bit nerdy, right? If you read the books, you know they're not like that. Cho is described as one of the most popular, beautiful, sporty girls in the school. Ginny is like the it girl of Hogwarts during Harry's 6th year. Every single boy wants her, and Harry swung both those girls without trying. He did try a little. Even in the 4th book, in the Yule Ball, when he goes with Pavarti, in the movie, it's kind of just, it feels like a last-minute choice. In the book, Dean asks Harry, he's like, how did you get the best-looking girl in our year? Dang, Harry. All right, I defended my right to call him popular. Now let's get to dumb. I don't actually think Harry is dumb, but I don't think you can in any way call Book Harry a nerd. He's not a nerd. I think it's because this sort of dumb persona was really put on Ron in the movies, and then people forget in the books that Harry was cheating off Hermione just as much. He was like slacking off his homework and going to play Quidditch just as much as Ron was. Order of the Phoenix is split completely in half. Look, all I'm saying is that a Harry Potter musical, if you look at their interpretations and you really think about it, they are pretty spot on. Last thing is that the movies had so much less of Harry's like popular boy sass, because I'm just remembering in the third movie when Draco's making fun of Harry and Harry's just kind of like staring at him, he doesn't say anything, and then Ron's like, oh, shove off, Malfoy, and they don't even say anything. I'm like, Book Harry would never. Anyway, that was my analysis of why Harry is a dumb popular jock. I don't know, do you think I need a life? This is a very true statement that I agree with. So where did this perception of not all Slytherins being evil, some are just misunderstood, that I was saying in the last video, where did that come from? And why in the last video was the comment section so intensely split between people who were like, how can you be of morally sound mind and even begin to think that any Slytherin could be good, and the other half being like, yeah, this is great, Slytherins are misunderstood. Why is there such a difference in the perception of Slytherin House between Harry Potter fans? Well, I'm going to tell you. And this is going to be a somewhat lengthy video, so just be prepared. But in my last one, a few people were like, this isn't an in-depth, nuanced analysis. And I'm like, it wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be a silly little makeup video. But I'm giving you an analysis, so it's going to be long. And also, I'm retrying my makeup, because in the last video, people were like, you did the makeup bad. And it's like, yeah, I'm a nerd. I can't do makeup. So we're gonna try again. Don't be mean to me. And in case this gets to the wrong side of TikTok, I do want to say in advance, like, yes, I know Harry Potter's not real, okay? I know it's not that deep. I'm literally just having fun making silly little videos. Okay, let me live. I have depression. My credentials for this are that I taught a college-level Harry Potter course, and I'm also a Ravenclaw. The way you perceive Slytherin House is going to be different depending on whether you're a fan that just watched the movies, whether you're a fan that just read the books, or whether you're a fan that is very, very much into fandom lore and the extended Harry Potter universe. The Harry Potter universe, like the Star Wars universe, has become so expansive that there exists different canons. That's what happens when you get, multimedia franchises. So let's talk about just the 7 books first, because it's true that in the 7 Harry Potter books, Slytherin House was not given a very nuanced interpretation. In the first 2 books especially, Slytherin House is very much written to be the villain. In the second book, their password is pure blood. The whole shtick is that Slytherin has a giant snake that kills Muggleborns, and at the end of that book, Dumbledore's like, you know what, Harry? You could have been a Slytherin, but because you're a good person, you chose Gryffindor. Oh my god, this looks terrible. We are presented with some nuance in the houses in the books. I'm not going to pretend like it was completely unnuanced, because we get Snape, who is a Slytherin, who obviously Harry thinks is trying to kill him in the first book, and he's actually saving him. We get the introduction of Slughorn, who is the epitome of a Slytherin who's just minding his own business. He does not want to take over the world with evil. He just wants to make connections so he can get free pineapple candy. Into the 7th book, we get Andromeda Tonks, who we don't see a lot of, but she is just a good person who happens to be in Slytherin. The problem with the introduction of all this nuance is that you think it's leading somewhere, because when I read the books for the first time, I was like, oh, this is leading to a point where the other 3 houses extend a hand out to Slytherin, and Slytherin decides to accept it and to say, you know what, we're going to renounce our history. We're going to fight on the right side of history this time. And that's not what happens. There's a line in the 7th book where McGonagall says, the time has come for Slytherin House to decide upon its loyalties. So you kind of assume this is leading to a moment where Slytherin House is going to choose the good side and they're going to get a redemption arc. What happens instead is there's a moment where Pansy stands up and she's like, hey, I don't want to die. Someone give him Harry. Which honestly, I mean, it's like a little valid of her. The other 3 houses then stand up and face off against Slytherin. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw are all against Slytherin in this moment. So what happens isn't this uniting moment between the houses. It's that, we're all 3 together going to unite against the bad house, which is Slytherin. And then all of Slytherin leaves. They don't fight in the Battle of Hogwarts, which, to be fair, most of the Ravenclaws are also like, peace out, I'm not dying for my high school. And then the Slytherin is the bad guy narrative is reinforced in the end, where Harry's son is still very much like, don't put me in Slytherin, they're evil. The movies, of course, do an even less nuanced job, where in the end, McGonagall's like, send every single 11-year-old Slytherin to the dungeons. So if you watch the 7 movies, Slytherin, fully evil. If you've just read the books, Slytherin, mostly evil. So when did this Slytherin, maybe not evil, maybe a little misunderstood thing sort of begin? I can tell you exactly where it began. It began with Pottermore. If you don't remember what Pottermore was, it was the precursor to the Wizarding World website where you could take a sorting quiz that tells you what house you are. So the problem is that if you're going to be sorting a quarter of the fan base into a house, and everyone thinks that that house is the evil, racist, horrible house that no one wants to be in, people are not going to be very happy with you. So there begins this sort of rebranding of Slytherin House, beginning with the Pottermore email that I referenced, where they're like, Slytherin's just misunderstood. Every house has bad wizards. We actually aren't racist against Muggleborns. There is an almost, I will say, retconning in some ways of Slytherin House. This also goes hand in hand with the sort of beginning to sell other house merchandise to Harry Potter fans. Because if you remember, before Pottermore, really, you could only buy Gryffindor merchandise. And now it's like, look at me. These, by the way, were gifted to me by Cine Replicas, and I love them. This was a little plug there. Slytherin merchandise. You cannot sell Slytherin merchandise to people if you have the narrative that Slytherin is a evil, racist house, right? So that, adds to this sort of need to rebrand Slytherin. Now, at the same time, there's a rebranding of Slytherin within the fandom because the fandom is aging and there is a hunger for a more nuanced take of a lot of the things in Harry Potter, but one of them being Slytherin House. So you start to get a lot of fan fiction, fan creations, analysis, going back and reanalyzing Slytherin House. And we get a lot of creations about Andromeda Tonks, about Marauders era characters, really going in depth on these Slytherin characters and sort of giving them stories that they weren't given in the 7 books. Oh, I just can't do makeup. I think the biggest rebranding of Slytherin happens with the Harry Potter extended universe. First of all, we have Fantastic Beasts, where we have the introduction of Leta Lestrange. People were really getting on me in the last video being like, where did you get this idea that Slytherins are cool goths that are just misunderstood? Leta Lestrange is the epitome of a Slytherin that is a cool goth who is just bullied for being different and because she's in Slytherin House and because she comes from a bad family. I haven't played Hogwarts Legacy yet, but I am told Sebastian Sallow is a Slytherin character who's just like a normal, nice dude. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, I know some people don't like to count it as canon, but both Harry's son and Draco's son are both sorted into Slytherin House, and they are both very nice people, right? They're not evil, they're not racist. You could even say with the extended games universe, like Hogwarts Mystery, where you're interacting with all these Slytherin characters who are very much just normal people like the rest of the houses are. Because Harry Potter has become this very expansive universe in the way that Star Wars has, and the way that there exists, multiple different canons in Star Wars, depending on what type of media you interact with, you're going to get people who are much more into the fandom extended universe side that, are very much well-versed in characters like Leta Lestrange or in Andromeda Tonks. And then you're going to get people who are maybe more of, they just love the original books and they're like, I know Slytherin was kind of evil in those. I personally think it's nice that these stories are getting a little bit more nuanced through the fandom and through the extended universe. I don't really think there's a way to reconcile the two perceptions, but I think that's okay. It's, again, like Star Wars, it's fine. You have different canons. It's okay. Anyway, if you sat through all that, I love you. Give me a high five in the comments and don't tell me how ugly my makeup application is because I know.
A rice cooker?
This is a topic I think everyone wants an answer to. Could you cook rice without a rice cooker at Hogwarts? Let's discuss. On the last Asian at Hogwarts video, a lot of people joked, are you a wizard or what? Just magic up the rice with your magic. Which is like, yeah. But the more I think about it, I don't think you could. As we know from Deathly Hallows, Hermione says that food is the first of 5 principal exceptions to Gimp's Law of Elemental Transfiguration, so you cannot make food out of nothing. So you cannot just magic up food. You can, however, summon it if you know where it is. You can transform it. You can increase the quantity if you've already got some. So theoretically, could you not just summon some cooked rice, if you know where it is, across all of Scotland to Hogwarts? I don't think so. Because in the 4th book, Harry and Ron are talking about how Harry's going to survive the second lake task, and they play with this idea of summoning scuba gear across Scotland to Hogwarts, and then decide that would probably be a breach of the International Statute of Secrecy, because all the muggles would be like, why is there scuba gear flying right in front of my eyes? So I think the same theory applies to a bowl of rice. I think that would be illegal. But Hermione says you can increase the quantity of food you have. So technically, you could just summon 1 grain of rice and increase the quantity. Could you not? Or you can transform food. So you could take some potatoes from the feast and transform them into rice, right? I think the answer to both those questions is Theoretically, yes. Practically, no. It's almost dinner time. I'm getting really hungry for rice. I don't think it's that easy to transform or increase the quantity of food, because if it was, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, all of whom are very talented wizards, especially Hermione, would not have been starving in the woods for the entire first half of Deathly Hallows. I mean, the whole premise of the first half of that book is that they're all hangry. That's the main conflict. So my guess is that doing magic on food just isn't an easy skill, or maybe it's not a skill that's taught in school because they're all so reliant on their house elves to cook for them. I don't know. Maybe Harry, Ron, and Hermione are just dumb, because in that scene, like 2 feet away, some dude summons a salmon and then cooks it and eats it and has a very nice dinner. And I'm like, you guys could have done that. Instead, you're getting into fights because you're starving. Just summon a fish. Maybe they all became vegetarian in Deathly Hallows. I don't know. Someone try to make it make sense for me in the comments. Point being, yes, I think you would need a rice cooker at Hogwarts. You would also need rice and electricity, which you wouldn't have. So I guess the thesis of this video is that all the Asians at Hogwarts are going to starve. Yeah, wait, hang on. Sirius's name got cleared. Crookshank's name got cleared. You know whose name never got cleared? Neville. Because remember, Sir Cadogan was thinking up ridiculously complicated passwords to Gryffindor Tower and changing them twice a day. And Neville very responsibly asked him for the passwords for the week and wrote them down so he could remember them. Like, I'm sorry, I have a bad memory too. That's not Neville's fault that his school put a lunatic as guard for Gryffindor Tower. Like, I would go full Draco Malfoy. You want me to remember 2 complicated passwords per day just so I can get to my bedroom? My father will hear about this. And then, as we know, Crookshanks steals the paper with the passwords. Neville doesn't lose it, but Neville is ripped to shreds for it. Remember, McGonagall did not let that slide. She banned him from all Hogsmeade visits, gave him detention, and forbade anyone from giving him the password, so he had to wait outside anytime he needed to get back into the dorms. And then Neville's grandmother sent him a howler that screamed to all of Hogwarts that he was a disgrace to his entire family. Like, did Harry ever tell him, oh, it wasn't your fault, Hermione's cat purposefully stole it from your bedside table? Did McGonagall ever apologize once she found out Sirius was innocent? No. I think to this day, Neville probably thinks it's still his fault. Justice for Neville Longbottom, man. That's messed up. Did the United States get a different version of Harry Potter because Americans are stupid? Let's discuss. A lot of funny discourse in the comment section of my previous video was the British people being like, why can't stupid Americans learn about other countries? And the Americans being like, shut up or we'll throw your tea in the harbor again. I will overanalyze this though, because I can. It's funny because the American editor of the Harry Potter books, Arthur Levine, used this exact reasoning when trying to persuade J.K. Rowling to change the title. He said in a letter to her that people reacted to the title Philosopher's Stone with thinking the book would have an obscure philosophical overtone and that we'd be better off in the United States with a title that was more playful and in parentheses, and easier to design. And he used the words, quote, chalk it up to idiot Americans. However, I think this was more of an attempt to persuade the author by throwing Americans under the bus a little bit into changing the title simply because he thought Sorcerer's Stone would be more marketable. Hence the, and easier to design, in parentheses, because being like, these poor dumb Americans don't understand philosophy is a more appealing argument to a British author than, we would make more money if your title didn't sound so lame. Because this was not just an American concern. The French also changed the title to be Harry Potter and the School of Magic because Philosopher's Stone felt too obscure for a children's book. Because the US editions of the Harry Potter books were not the only editions changed to fit the culture of the recipient country in translation. It's the translator's job not just to translate the language, but the cultural context as well, so you don't lose the author's intention in translation. Besides changing Voldemort's middle name to Elvis and the title to The School of Magic, the French translation also gives cultural context, like adding in a little paragraph where Ron explains what a prefect is, as French schools generally don't have prefix. Hagrid's exclamations of "Blimey, you're crikey" are changed to exclamations like "In the name of a vampire" or "Jellyfish sack." If anyone in France would like to explain this one to me, please feel free. The Hebrew translation has Sirius Black singing a Hanukkah song rather than a Christmas song that Hebrew-speaking audiences might be less familiar with. The Arabic translation omitted references to pork and bacon, so the United States is far from the only country that got a version of the book to fit their cultural context. You might say, well, it's not a different language for the United States, it's the same language, so why did we need it? But other languages also have regional translations of Harry Potter, right? There are multiple Spanish versions of the Harry Potter books to fit the regional culture and dialect. And the impetus with translating the books to American English wasn't that they thought Americans would be too stupid to figure out what the words meant contextually, but more so that we would conflate words that had different meanings in UK versus US English. The example the US publisher Arthur Levine gave was jumper, which means a sweater in the UK and a sort of like
child's overalls in the US, because if the author meant jumper as in sweater, you want the reader to picture Harry wearing a sweater, not Harry wearing overalls. This is why it's important in translations to convey the author's intent versus the direct wording. As we see in later books, when they started to incorporate more UK vernacular into the American Scholastic editions, this was in fact a valid concern, as shown by the number of us who thought Filch was drop-kicking students American football style when it said he was punting them. Can't Americans use context clues? Yeah, the context was Filch loves physically assaulting students and has to get them from one side of the hall to the other. I think that context checks out. Do I prefer the books with the UK wording? Yes. I think it adds a certain charm to it that makes the story better. But at the same time, I think it was valid to want to give kids the opportunity to enjoy these books with less confusion. Arthur Levine said he wasn't trying to, quote, Americanize the books. What he was trying to do was translate, which he said I think was different. I wanted to make sure an American kid reading the book would have the same literary experience that a British kid would have. Were there other ways to accomplish this? You could do it like the Chinese translation, which left in words like cornflakes but gave a footnote description. But that's also, it has a downside of taking you out of the story. So there's not really a perfect way to do it. Is there also a conversation to be had about whether Americans' editions of books are changed to the point of a fault? Yeah, certainly. The American edition of the third book of the His Dark Materials trilogy takes out an entire passage that references Lyra's sexual awakening. 3 guesses as to why, which completely undermines the entire point His Dark Materials is making. And can we also talk about how American kids are not exposed to other languages earlier enough? Like, I didn't get the opportunity to learn another language in school until I was 14. That's way too late to learn anything. And other countries do it from primary school. And Canada and Australia, they just read the UK editions. They didn't create an edition of the books for their cultural context, whether that's because they thought their kids wouldn't have trouble understanding British English, or there wasn't a publishing company with enough money to get the rights to Harry Potter, like Scholastic in the US. I don't know. I didn't do research. Someone from those countries, you can jump in. But there's also certainly a point to be made that the US editions were like any other country's translations. They were to help kids experience the story without any language barrier. So, what do you think? Should the US editions have been changed? Should they not have been changed? Let me know your thoughts. And thanks for watching this, 6, 7, whatever minute video. If you watched this whole thing, I am giving you a friendly handshake in the comment section.
I am here today to drag British people. I made a video discussing how the American editions of Harry Potter changed some of the British terminology so American kids could better understand the wording, and about 50% of that comment section was British people being like, oh, Americans are so dumb for needing US editions of Harry Potter. Dumb, unconscious, the cold beans on toast. We're still mad about it. Well, this is a very interesting claim that your books are not localized to fit your vernacular. A very bold claim, I might say, considering what I would argue is the American equivalent of Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, does in fact have a British edition where all the wording is changed to fit British terminology as not to confuse an audience of British children. Just an example for some of the changes that were made. It is math in the US edition. It was changed to maths in the UK edition. John's is changed to toilet. Chips are changed to crisp. When Harry Potter was published in the US, trainers were changed to sneakers. When Percy Jackson was published in the UK, sneakers were changed to trainers. Those are just a few of the changes I could find by skimming the UK edition, but basically a lot of similar wording that was changed in Harry Potter for an American audience was changed in the UK for a British audience for Percy Jackson, just the other way around. And these changes, in my opinion, are a good thing. I made a whole separate video if you want to watch about why I think changing books to fit cultural context in translations is a good thing, especially in books meant for children. But I just had to put this out there to say, no, British people, you are not, in fact, more cultured. Your books are changed too. Have a good Tuesday. Okay, I'm loving this debate about whether Harry Potter is a jock or a nerd, but I think no one is asking a critical question when it comes to what American high school archetype do the Harry Potter characters fit into? And that is, why are there no theater kids at Hogwarts? Well, I will tell you why. There is a story in Tales of Beedle the Bard. It's my favorite story. It's called The Fountain of Fair Fortune. Many years ago at Hogwarts, then herbology professor Herbert Beery, who was a big theater nerd, decided he wanted to put on a Christmas time play of The Fountain of Fair Fortune. The thing about The Fountain of Fair Fortune is that it features a giant worm. It was revealed, however, halfway through the play, that the giant worm Professor Kettleburn provided was not at all a worm, but an ashwinder with an engorgement charm placed upon it. Now, an ashwinder, as we know from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, is basically a fire serpent. So, of course, the ashwinder lays its eggs, they catch the floorboards on fire, the Great Hall is on fire, everyone has to evacuate. There's also some, crazy relationship drama happening during this time, and, people start dueling each other. Anyway, Professor Herbert Beery was placed on one of his 62 periods of probation during his time at Hogwarts, and then Headmaster Armando Dippet imposed a blanket ban on theater at Hogwarts. This is described as a proud non-theatrical tradition that Hogwarts continues to this day. I think this is a cautionary tale of the importance of arts in school, because those Hogwarts kids would not be having so much drama all the time if they just had a creative outlet for it. I'm a Ravenclaw, but Hufflepuff is objectively the best house, and I don't even think that's a hot take. That's just facts. Hufflepuff gets dunked on for that line in the Sorting Song where all the houses are like, I'll take the smart ones, I'll take the brave ones, I'll take the ambitious ones, and Hufflepuff's like, I'll take the rest. But we should be making fun of the rest of the founders for that, not Hufflepuff. Hey, Godric, what kind of 11-year-olds do you want at your school?
I want 11-year-olds who are willing to die for their country.
Like, Ravenclaw doesn't have the right idea either. She's like, I want the students that are smart and like learning. Bestie, it's a school. It's your job to make the students like learning and to make them smart. They're not supposed to come in like that. We already know that Slytherin is giving college preparatory school whose tuition is more than my entire yearly salary vibes. And then Hufflepuff comes along like, hey, maybe we should foster an environment of hard work and fair play for our students. And everyone was like, Hufflepuff, you communist. I don't know. I think it says a lot about our society that Hufflepuff's traits are the most undervalued. This is the Felix Felicis lip gloss, by the way. Look at that gold. I just think in an ideal world, we would all want to be Hufflepuffs. And yellow goes good with everything. So I got like 100 comments on my last video of people asking for me to do the whole alphabet in Harry Potter's handwriting. So here is a tutorial I never thought I would be making, how to write like Harry Potter. There is the whole alphabet in my handwriting if you want to go ahead and screenshot that. If you want a more in-depth tutorial, keep watching. A few disclaimers, Harry barely writes in capital letters in this book, so a lot of these capital letters are just my guesses based on the lowercase letters. And also, this is kind of like my handwriting style of Harry Potter's handwriting. It is not completely 100% accurate. My handwriting has changed over time too. If you don't have the 2001 copy of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, that is okay. I will show you the pages you need. If you're basing your handwriting out of this copy, important thing to keep in mind, this book is written by Harry and Ron, and a little bit of Hermione. So you need to know how to differentiate between Ron and Harry's handwriting so you don't accidentally copy Ron's, because Ron's is ugly. Ron's handwriting is the messy one. Harry's handwriting is the slightly less messy one. No wonder Hermione had to do all their homework. The number one characteristic thing about Harry's handwriting is the looping Y's, looping G's, basically anything with a little tail. He likes to loop. Not a big loop. Like, we're not going like that. You gotta write it, and then you gotta just a little tiny loop at the bottom there. The other thing you want to do is stylistically have it look like it's written by a quill. So how I copied that when I was 12 was just adding little tails everywhere. And so when you're writing T, it's not just going to be a basic T. You know, you're going to add a little slant, you're going to add a little tail. T. Final step, Harry kind of combines his letters a little bit, so it's a little tiny hints of cursive in there. So, you know, just when you're writing, it's combined a little. The letters are touching. And before you come at me in the comments like, you stupid Harry Potter zillennial, why would you waste your time learning this handwriting? I was 12 and it was fun. So, yeah. Okay.